Hi there. Welcome back to our flax field, what's left of it. It's now September 12th, and it's been over a month since we last filmed, and what we're seeing is not pretty. We have a field full of weeds, as we knew the last time. However, since that time, we've also had a hurricane and a tropical storm and severe flooding that washed over this entire field. So what little flax we have left, actually we are very proud and pleased to have, because there's not much, but there's something. And we still want to show you how to determine when the flax is ready for harvesting, and we want to show you how to harvest the flax. We're going to be pulling the flax, we're going to be making bundles from the flax and tying it off with what we call the farmer's knot. And then we're going to assume that we have enough flax to actually make a shock of flax. And a shock may consist of 25 to 30 or so bundles of flax. And the flax will dry in that shock over the next week. And at that time, the flax will have lost its water weight. Typically about half the weight of the plant when we pull it is water. The plant will dry out. The seeds will harden and toughen, and they will be ready to actually ripple, and we're going to show that in a later video, how to ripple and thresh the flax. And then we'll be going into the retting. We'll be showing water retting and dew retting. But first, we have to pull the flax. Now let's check and see what we've got. This flax is actually quite good. This is waist-high flax. And frankly, I'm amazed that we got anything. This has been a tough time not only in our valley and our farm for flax, but I've been in contact with a number of people who raise flax across the country, and the whole year across the country has been very bad for flax, and not just in this country. We have a grower in Holland who says heavy, extensive, and delayed rains have really damaged their crop to the point where they're not able to harvest a good deal of their crop. So it's bad for flax, not just here in the Montano Valley, but across the United States and into Europe. So we feel pretty good that we have anything to show you. Now what we're going to do now is I'm going to pull some flax out of the ground. We're going to look at this flax and see what makes it ready to pull. What you'll see is that the lower third of the plant is starting to turn yellow. The top, however, is still green. Some of the seed pods are browning. Most of them, however, are still a pale green, a light green to a yellow, and there are still some buds going on. So we have flax in a transitional period now. Flax is not like wheat or grain that you let ripen to complete yellow and die on the stalk, because that toughens the fibers. And we want to catch the flax at this transitional period so we will have good, pliable fiber to spin and yet have viable seed. Because if you keep your seed from one year to the next, you want to make sure that the seed is viable. So this is what we have. This is flax that's ready to harvest. And you pull it up by the root, which in this water-soaked, soggy soil is actually very easy to do. You simply reach over, grab a handful, and pull it right out. Now you want to separate the weeds from the flax, so just toss the weeds away. We're going to pull enough flax to make a bundle of flax. And if you have some mud on it, now that's a muddy weed, we're just going to pull that muddy weed right off. Quite often there are clumps of dirt, in this case clumps of mud, that come up with the roots. And what you want to do is just beat them against your boot or leg, and try and get as much of that off as possible. Now, this is about as much as you can put your thumb and forefinger together. At least we start out this way. If we had a full acre of flax to do, by the end of the day our bundles would be enormous. You would actually put your two middle fingers together and your two thumbs, and all the flax in that space is usually what we get by the end of the day. But we're starting out in moderation here. Now we're going to make the farmer's knot. I pull another small handful of flax. The flax is quite strong at this point. What we do is we make an overhand knot. I'll show you that again. It's just you take both ends, you put either right over left or left over right, it makes no difference. It's just like you're going to start a shoelace to make an overhand knot. You actually get the loop through as though you're going to make the overhand knot, and then you pull it, but you don't pull it all the way out. You actually leave the loop. So this is what we call the farmer's knot. The reason we do this is that when we go to ripple the flax and work with the flax, all you'll have to do is just pull that loop and the knot comes undone. That's the advantage of using the farmer's knot, is that it makes the flax very easy to undo when you're ready to work with it. Again, get both ends of the flax on either side of the bundle, cross one side over the other, push one end through, and instead of pulling it all the way through, you simply pull out a loop and you leave the loop. And that is the farmer's knot. This is one bundle of flax. We're going to start working up the field here. I should say, the field is an optimistic way of putting it. We're going to start working our way up the row of flax. And I think we're going to change places. I'm actually going to do some camera work. We'll watch Christian do some pulling. We'll share the burden. And then we'll put our flax together into a shock. So stay tuned. There's nothing more exciting than watching other people work. Now when he's ready to make the flax knot, I'm going to get in here really close. See how he pulls it through like that? He has that loop. And there's the farmer's knot. To make a shock, you need to start with a central core of 4 bundles. 2 here, and then 2 in the opposite direction. Now they won't stand up by themselves when you start, so you need someone to hold them, and then you start working around where there's a space. There's one space here. There's a space between the original 4 here. Another space here. And another space here. So now we have 8. And after that, you start slowly working around the shock, keeping them fairly loose.
it doesn't matter how many you use in this row, as long as they are together and you come around evenly like that. And there you have it. Very simple procedure of making a shock.
Here we are with our 2 shots for 2011. Actually, I'm surprised we have this much. There have been years gone by when we had 35 to 40 shots from an acre of flax. This is not one of those years. What you need to look for during the week that they're drying out are a couple of things. One is if it rains, check the interior of the shot to see if it's molding. Oftentimes, the interior will dampen and will start to grow mold, and at that time you need to open it up and maybe even lay the moldy ones out on the grass to dry out. You definitely need to rearrange the shot so that the drier bundles on the outside form your new core on the inside. You want to make sure that there's no mold on the flax, because what happens is that will actually start to rot the flax, and you may lose a good part of your straw that way. We've had bulldozers drive by, we've had our dog barking, so we're working here between problems, but we are forging ahead. The other problem especially is as the shot dries out, remember I said earlier it will lose half of its weight in water. As it dries out, in heavy winds the entire shot may blow over. So you need to keep a daily eye out on your shots to make sure that they're not lying over, because again, if it lies over on the ground, it's going to start rotting and molding. You really need to be careful that they're always upright. Sometimes there may be birds that will eat your flax seed. That's another problem. We've never had that happen here in our area of central Pennsylvania, but when we were growing flax down in the Lehigh Valley of southeastern Pennsylvania, we had a lot of trouble with birds eating our flax seeds. So you may want to cover them with large bags of cloth. Muslin is one possibility for keeping birds out if you find that's a problem. Another thing to look out for is that when you take the, the bundles to the rippling stand, as you'll see next week, you may want to tilt them over first to make sure that there are no snakes underneath. I mention this because over a week, field mice will actually start to live in the flat straw or underneath the flat straw, and snakes inevitably will follow the field mice. And there's been more than one time when I've lifted up a shock of flax to carry to the rippling stand and have been pretty surprised to find a little snake looking at me. So those are things to look out for with your shots of flax. We will be back in a week. The flax will be dry and we'll do some rippling. See you there.